Sometimes I confuse myself.
I'm about to say hi, and you've got like this much more on you.
Yeah, no. 6 foot, 6 2 in the front.
Yeah. So, getting back to Alice's story, yes, I was raised Catholic. I was born the 7th of 8 kids, very large family, lots of older sisters, only one big brother. And so, like many kids, getting ready for those first days of school, a lot of kids feel apprehension and nerves. And having seen all my siblings go off to school and come back every day relatively unscathed, I didn't feel that. I was ready. I said, bring it on. And so I began kindergarten in Miss Minuet's class at Nut Swamp Elementary. Nut Swamp, yes. It's not a medical condition. It was the name of my school. And in those first days of kindergarten, I learned the wonders of show and tell. And I thought, wow, this is great. But an entire captive audience is going to listen to me and pretend to be interested? It was completely new. It was a complete contrast from my home life where I always heard things like, will somebody please go and see what the hell David's babbling about? So this was a new concept to me. So I'm in kindergarten, I'm loving it. And in that first, let me back up a little bit. Getting ready, this is where the fun begins. Getting ready in that household full of 10 people, it was bedlam on a daily basis. All these people getting ready. Now add on top of that the extreme intense pressure I felt of wanting to perform in my very first show and tell. Daunting doesn't even begin to describe that morning for me. So enter my big brother Roland. He knew I was on the lookout for a show and tell item. He knew I wanted to impress. Now Roland was, and he still is, 7 years older than me. And I think he's always found humor and opportunity in our age difference. He told me a lot of stories when I was growing up. I believed every word, anything that came out of his mouth was gospel. So he looked into the eyes of his brother, me, and he saw panic and fear, and he did what big brothers do. He seized the opportunity. He could smell my desperation. He knew the clock was running, so he says, do you want to bring in my new slingshot for show and tell? I'm like, what? You have a new slingshot? This is such incredibly good news and so well timed. I'm like, I got show and tell in 5 minutes. So now keep in mind, this is the 70s. Slingshots were all the rage back in the 70s. It was the latest way for kids like us to permanently impair our vision. I'm thinking, great. So Roland says, it's downstairs in the basement in the furnace room. I'm thinking, awesome. He said, you have to promise me one thing though. You cannot tell Mom. I'm like, she doesn't need to know. Mom will never find out. So we go down to the basement, to the furnace room, which is the darkest, scariest, most pungent room in the whole house. Okay? My dad even has a makeshift clothesline rigged down there to take full advantage of the greenhouse effect we had brewing in that furnace room. And hanging on that makeshift clothesline was one of my dad's battle-tested jock straps. Now, this clothesline was his private clothesline where he was allowed to hang shit that my mom wouldn't dare let him put out on the primary clothesline in full view of the neighbors. So here's this jock strap sitting there. By the way, it looks like something that could launch a projectile a couple hundred feet. And it smelled funny. Okay? So here's this thing hanging on the clothesline. What the hell it was doing there and why it was there, I don't know. I don't care. I'm 5. So Roland reaches up for this thing. He hands it to me. He says, here's my slingshot. Okay, first of all, handing it to me with just his index finger and his thumb. Red flag, right? The fact that his breathing was strained, his head's turned to the side like he's got a bad case of the hiccups, none of this is registering with me. I was 5. I was excited. And I had a real slingshot in my hand. Or so I thought. So I take this slingshot and I stuff it into my underdog backpack. I'm about to head to the bus stop. My brother's like, wait, where are you going? I'm like, going to school. He goes, don't you know all the cool kids wear their slingshots around their necks? What was I thinking? Why was I burying the singing the bowels of my backpack? This is a trophy. I reach into underdog backpack, pull it out, yank it over my head, and I adjust the rock launcher to a front and center position. Now I'm ready. I am ready. Now, typically kindergartners, they go unnoticed on school buses, right? Little kids, who gives a shit? That day, all eyes are on me and my trophy. I'm thinking, if this is any indication of how my day is going to go, look out, world. So the world may never know another time when an entire classroom of children were so laser focused on any one item ever. That was my first show and tell. It was amazing. My teacher, Miss Minuet, even sent me home with a note for my mom to sign. She was clearly impressed with my show and tell performance. That was my very first show and tell, and the last time Roland was ever allowed to help me with my homework again.